View options dialog allows you to set a lot of the parameters for controlling the view of the model, but a lot of these things are just associated with some of the buttons that we've been talking about, such as turning endpoints on and off. In the view options menu, you can actually turn endpoints and additional nodes on and off separately. If you use the toolbar button, it toggles both of them at the same time. You can turn off various portions of the strakes if they're defined in the model. You can turn on and off the stiffener layouts, but that one has a specific button associated with it to turn them on and off. And if we turn those on and then go into the view options dialog, you can see the stiffeners are turned on. And if we turn them off, they disappear. It's essentially the same thing as toggling the button. These are various types of elements, beams, rods, springs, and so forth. There are entries here for the turning on and off the water plane. Master elements, I believe, are for fine mesh models. And we'll have a display of those later, but it's those interpolation R-splines are used for turning the display of those on and off. You can set various scale factors for different things in the model, for changing the extent of the water plane, the size of the restraints, presentation of point loads, and so forth. You can simply just toggle these numbers up and down to change the size of those items on the display. When we're viewing a results plot, say if we're looking at stress contours, you can control some features of the plot legend, the font size, and the number of blocks that are shown in the display on the right. That band of color-coded blocks, you can control, I guess, how many of them are. With regards to viewing some of the post-processing results, when we load those results, the model will appear in a deformed state where it exaggerates all of the displacements in the model to get a better view of exactly how the model deflected. Now, Maestro will, based on what the deflections are throughout the model, Maestro will select a scale factor, but you can come into the view options dialog and manually adjust that if you want. You can also, right now, it's set for total, but there are options here for changing that to only scale the displacements in the X, Y, or Z direction if you want. And the range command here is for when you're displaying a result that uses the color-coded scale on the right, you can define what the maximum and minimum of that bar should be. As I mentioned earlier, it's primarily a single viewport used in Maestro, although it has the ability to have multiple viewports active. I don't think it's very common for people to use it. I always use it just with the single viewport, but this is available if you want to use it, where you can have multiple viewports active at the same time. And an important one here is for performance issues. Ideally, you'll want to use a hardware Z buffer, and I think this is the default when you install Maestro, but you tend to get the best performance if you have an OpenGL capable card. The hardware Z buffer with the OpenGL driver tends to give good performance. If you do have issues with the display, you can change the rendering option here to painters or ZSort or something else that may help to eliminate some flicker if you don't. And this is probably more of an issue years ago. With today's hardware, typically hardware Z buffer and OpenGL will work. But there are sort of legacy options available if you do see flickering or something odd in the display. And some other things you control in here are toggling on and off the world axes that are displayed, cutting planes, construction geometry, and so forth.